started off a normal day. We were bringing troops and cargo into Taji. You're required to stop there to do a customs inspection. We managed to pull in, land, uneventful, pulled into the parking spot, turned around to face the runway because the winds were coming at us that way. Keep the engines cool. All the troops went off the back of the airplane. They went into a tent to go get processed. We were hanging out in the airplane, the engine's running, just kind of relaxing, trying to, just wait for the next portion of the mission to start and wait for the troops that were coming back onto the airplane to join us.
While we were waiting for the passengers to return, a helicopter, unbeknownst to us, was taxiing out. We initially felt a large impact of the aircraft. I asked, what was that? As soon as I asked that, our navigator, Lieutenant Colonel Scott Hammond, said, "Look out your window." As I looked out my left window right next to my head, the window was shattered, and all I could see was a white cloud of dust. Initially, I thought that a rocket or mortar had hit the ground, a surface explosion causing all the dust to kick up. At that point, the Loadmaster, Master Sergeant Michael Barzak, keyed the mic and said my aux pump just exploded, auxiliary hydraulic pump in the back of the aircraft. At that point, as the dust started to settle, I could see the rotors of the helicopter starting to spin down. At that point, we were still being peppered with debris from the rotor blades that were shattered in the impact. Due to the fact it was still coming down, we didn't elect to do an emergency egress to the aircraft. We just said, let's shut it down. At that point, Colonel Hammond had said we need to go check on the helicopter crew. So while we were going through the shutdown of the aircraft, Colonel Hammond and Lieutenant Colonel Doc Gibson, George Gibson, exited the front of the aircraft and proceeded to go over to the helicopter to check on the crew. While at that point, the rest of the crew continued with the shutdown and secured the aircraft. We had to immediately remove power from the aircraft. The hydraulic fluid was pouring down the ramp. So at that point, we just shut it down and started to assess the damage that we had with the aircraft.
After we shut the engines down, that's when we realized that a helicopter had hit a retaining wall. We stepped off the aircraft there, and that's when we realized that the scope of what happened and how much damage was on that aircraft. When you finally, it doesn't really hit you right away. We had a huge hole in the side of the aircraft, along with a lot of the smaller holes that you can see on that. But it wasn't until probably 2 hours later that the whole scope, after you see what it is, you realize that somebody should have been killed. There's no other explanation. When you look at the holes and relative to where we were standing, it was either over our heads, in front, or behind. You count your blessings, and you realize that that could have been your last rotation, but it wasn't. So, and we just continued the remainder of the rotation.
Once the aircraft was damaged, it stayed in Kuwait for approximately 90 days. Currently, one of the maintenance facilities that we're authorized to use is in Lisbon, Portugal, through contract maintenance. And so the crew took it to Lisbon, arrived there on December 4th of 2018, and we took it out on December 10th. Luckily, no one in the helicopter was injured, nor was anyone in our aircraft who was injured. No one was hurt, so it was miraculous that no one got injured.
Everyone really pulled together and made sure that the aircraft was maintained properly and repaired properly. They were able to go pick it up and bring it back home. And so there's nothing like seeing one of our own birds hit the ground here at Fort Worth.
Everybody sprung into action to make sure you did your buddy checks. Was everybody okay? And that held through all the way through.